Most people picture medieval peasants living on crusts of bread and watery soup, but that image leaves out one of the smartest food systems ever invented: perennial kitchen gardens. Tucked beside cottages and monastery walls, these plots ran on what I like to call forever crops, plants you put in once and then harvest for years. Not the trendy annuals that need coddling, but rugged, come back every spring staples that quietly fed households through lean months and harsh weather. The twist? Many modern gardeners don't even know they exist. These 9 perennials powered villages for centuries, then slipped out of memory as fashions changed and easier supermarket options arrived. So what were they? Why did we abandon something so practical? And how would they work in a modern backyard? Let's rewind the mental image of a medieval kitchen. Picture a wood-fired hearth, a pot simmering all day, and a narrow door that opens straight into green abundance. Out there, just a few steps away, you'd find the first secret weapon: lovage. If you've never cooked with it, think of lovage as celery's older, wiser cousin, same bold, savory profile, but with a personality that actually wants to be helpful. Celery sulks without perfect moisture and mild temperatures. Lovage, meanwhile, shrugs off tough soil, shrugs off neglect, and pops back up every spring like it signed a long-term lease. From a cook's perspective, lovage is a dream because every part earns its keep. The leaves behave like a supercharged seasoning. Toss a handful into soup or stew, and bland turns memorable. The stems and seeds bring a peppery, almost lemony celery note to roasts, dressings, and pickles. Even the roots matter, they store well and pull double duty for winter flavor. That kind of whole plant utility is why medieval kitchens leaned on lovage the way we reach for salt and pepper. When you're carrying a household through a long season of preserved grains, cured meats, and whatever you managed to dry last summer, any fresh leaf that can elevate the pot is priceless. From a gardener's perspective, lovage reads as a cheat code. Plant it once in a sunny spot with reasonably moist soil, and it turns into a perennial fountain of flavor. The stalks can tower up to 6 feet, the foliage billows into a lush clump, and the maintenance list is laughably short. In an age before automatic sprinklers and potting mixes, that resilience was the difference between "we have something green tonight" and "we're out of flavor until spring." And unlike celery, which can dissolve into limp mush in your fridge, lovage lives in the open air. Need a hit of that crisp herbal edge? Step outside, snip a few leaves, and you're back to the pot in under a minute. Part of why lovage feels almost miraculous today is that we forgot the problem it solved. Modern gardeners often pursue fragile showpieces, perfect tomatoes, finicky greens, novelty peppers, and then spend all season coaxing them along. Medieval gardeners optimized for survival. They chose plants that met them halfway, then did their job without supervision. Lovage is the thesis statement for that mindset. Useful all year, forgiving to grow, and generous in the kitchen. Now, if lovage is the quiet professional, the next plant is the dramatic extrovert that makes visitors stop and stare. Meet cardoon, the artichoke's grand, architectural cousin. Where artichokes seduce you with tender hearts, cardoons win by sheer abundance and spectacle. Imagine a plant throwing up a living candelabra of silvery green leaves, each ribbed and shimmering like hammered armor in the sunday. It can hit 5 feet tall or more, anchoring a bed the way a small tree would, and once it settles in, it's remarkably self-sufficient. Here's where the cardoon flips expectations. Everyone thinks artichokes equals flower buds, right? Cardoon says, sure, the buds are nice, but have you met the stems? Those thick, pale ribs taste like artichoke, nutty, slightly sweet, deeply vegetal, and they grow in quantities that make a home-cooked grin. Harvest them young for salads, or let them size up for soups, stews, and gratins. Medieval gardeners even had a prep trick. A few weeks before harvest, they'd blanch the stems by wrapping them in straw or cloth, shielding them from light to tenderize and mellow the flavor. That little bit of old-world technique turns a handsome plant into a reliable staple. Growing cardoon couldn't be much simpler. Give it full sun and well-drained, reasonably fertile soil, then mostly get out of the way. Water to establish, keep an eye on it during the hottest stretches, and the plant does the rest. In return, it loads you with edible mass pounds of food from a single clump, and it comes back, season after season. That's why it's baffling that cardoon slipped out of common use. Somewhere along the way, we forgot how to cook it, lumped it in with exotic ornamentals, and kept buying delicate annuals that fail at the first sign of trouble. If you're sensing a pattern, you're right. The medieval playbook favored reliability, multifunction, and timing. These gardens were systems. They staggered harvests, covered the hunger gap in spring, and made sure there was always something green to chop into the pot. Lovage delivered year-round seasoning. Cardoon offered bulk, body, and comfort food potential. And then there was the stealth MVP we'll meet in part 2, a humble perennial that acts like 3 vegetables in a single plant, an asparagus stand-in, a spinach upgrade, and a tiny broccoli bonus, all from the same root. Before we get there, it's worth calling out how these perennials change the math of home food. Annuals are a sprint: sow, tend, harvest, start over. Perennials are an investment: plant once, harvest often, let the roots do the work. That shift unlocks a different kind of abundance. You're no longer juggling germination windows, waiting on perfect soil temperatures, or nursing seedlings on a windowsill. Instead, you build a cast of characters that re-enters the story every year, on cue, some in early spring when you need fresh food the most, some in high summer when the pot needs heft, and some in late fall when frost sweetens their flavors. Back to lovage for one more moment, because there's a practical perk modern kitchens forget: preservation. Drying lovage is straightforward. Hang small bundles in a warm, airy place, crumble the leaves when crisp, and store them in a jar. The flavor stays surprisingly vivid, especially compared to limp, store-bought celery leaves. The seeds, too, are tiny flavor grenades, pungent, aromatic, and ideal for spice blends, rubs, and pickling. Medieval cooks didn't waste a thing, and neither should we. And cardoon? It rewards the same thrifty mindset. Trimmed ribs can be blanched and frozen for winter dishes. The plant, once established, shrugs off difficult seasons that would wipe out fussier crops. Even the ornamental side pays dividends. Those giant thistle-like flowers attract pollinators, drawing bees that help the rest of your garden. Beauty, function, and food, all stacked in one plant that's medieval efficiency. So if your current garden feels like an anxiety project, constant watering, pest battles, and vegetables that refuse to cooperate, this series is your permission slip to pivot. We're bringing back the 9 forever crops that kept villages fed. Lovage and cardoon, yes. But also the 3-in-1 marvel known as Good King Henry, the drought-proof licorice crunch of fennel, the nutrition-dense weed you've probably been pulling for years, the shade, loving chef's secret chervil, the never-fail backbone of parsley, the candy-sweet perennial root called skirret, and the tart, spring-first powerhouse rhubarb. Individually, they're impressive. Together, they're a low-maintenance safety net that turns a small patch of soil into a year-round pantry. In the next part, we'll meet Good King Henry, the plant that moonlights as early asparagus, mid-season spinach, and late-summer mini broccoli, all from one indestructible root system. It's the kind of efficiency you can taste, and it might be the single best argument for rethinking your garden from the ground up. Let's talk about the perennial that quietly does the work of 3 different vegetables without asking for much more than a patch of ground and a little patience. Good King Henry. The name sounds like it belongs in a ballad, but this is as practical as garden plants get. Medieval households counted on it because it delivered exactly when they needed it most, right after winter, when stores were low and stomachs were tired of salted meat and porridge. Before the first peas set pods, and long before annual spinach cooperated, Good King Henry broke the monotony with something tender, green, and alive. Here's the magic, in plain terms. In early spring, before your other beds have even decided whether they're awake, Good King Henry throws up thick, upright shoots that look and behave like miniature asparagus. Snap them off when they're about 6 inches tall, and you get spears that steam or saute to a nutty sweet tenderness. They don't ask for melted butter and lemon, but they won't complain if you go there. In a medieval kitchen, those spears might have gone into a pottage with barley and a bit of cured pork, turning a lean meal into something you actually looked forward to. Today, they're a 5-minute side dish. Olive oil, hot pan, pinch of salt, done. Once you've enjoyed the asparagus act, the plant changes costume without leaving the stage. As days lengthen, new leaves unfurl into broad, arrow-shaped greens that cook like spinach, only sturdier and less sulky. Where modern spinach goes from perky to mushy in seconds, Good King Henry keeps a little backbone. Wilt it with garlic. Fold it into eggs. Stir it through a risotto. It brings the same mineral-rich depth people love in spinach, but without the bitterness that sometimes creeps in when spinach bolts. Medieval gardeners didn't have nutrient labels, yet they favoured these leaves for a reason. They're loaded with iron and vitamin C, which mattered long before anyone knew the words micronutrient. Then comes the third act, tiny, clustered flower buds that crown each stem in late spring and summer. Harvest them before they open, and you've got something that behaves like baby broccoli, small, green, and full of bite. Toss them into a skillet the way you would. Broccolini florets, or blanch and dress them with vinegar and herbs. One root, 3 distinct vegetables, each arriving at a different moment in the season. If you're designing a garden for continuous harvest, that's a jackpot. Growing Good King Henry is the opposite of delicate. The plant is a survivor by design. Give it a corner with decent drainage and partial to full sun, and it will carry on even if you forget about it for weeks. Tough soil? It accepts the challenge. Late frost? It shrugs and tries again. Drought? It digs deeper with a robust root system and waits you out. In fact, one of the easiest mistakes new growers make is treating it like an annual baby that needs constant attention. Don't. Treat it like the perennial it is. Top it with compost in early spring. Keep the weeds from smothering it its first year, and otherwise let it establish. After that, you'll wonder why more vegetables aren't this self-motivated. Planting is simple. You can start from seed or divisions, but be honest about your patience level. Seeds can take their time, sometimes germinating slowly and unevenly. If you're willing to wait a season or two for the plant to bulk up, sow in place in early spring, keep the soil lightly moist and thin to a spacing of about a foot between plants. If you want a head start, track down a division, a piece of an established plant, and drop it into your garden like a plug. Either way, protect it from aggressive weeds while it gets its feet under it, then relax. By year 2, you have a perennial patch that simply reports for duty every spring. Harvesting has a rhythm. In the earliest weeks, take a few spears from each crown, not all of them, so the plant keeps enough energy to leaf out. Once leaves are abundant, pick the outer, younger ones regularly, and you'll stimulate fresh growth from the center, the way you would with cut and come-again lettuce. When the small green bud clusters appear, nip them before they flower, and you've got your mini broccoli. If you miss a few and the flowers open, no disaster, the plant will still push new growth, and you've just fed a few pollinators. Medieval gardeners would pinch buds to keep the plant leafy longer. You can borrow that technique or let a few go to seed if you want volunteers next spring. Flavor-wise, you can steer Good King Henry a couple of ways. The youngest spring spears deserve gentle treatment, brief steam, quick sauté, maybe a squeeze of lemon or a splash of vinegar. For the leaves, think fat plus heat plus aromatics. Butter and garlic is classic for a reason, but olive oil with anchovy and chili is medieval peasant food turned weeknight luxury. The buds like higher heat and bold seasoning. Sear hard, then finish with a splash of stock or wine to deglaze, and a handful of chopped parsley at the end. If you grew lovage from part 1, mince a few leaves and toss them in to amplify savouriness. A few practical notes make life even easier. Mulch generously. It keeps moisture steady, deters weeds, and protects those shallow feeder roots. In early spring, scratch in compost or aged manure around the base. You'll get sturdier spears and richer leaves. If you're in a hot region, offer a bit of afternoon shade, not mandatory, but it helps keep the leaves tender. And if you find the raw leaves a touch strong for salads, a 1-minute blanch in boiling water, followed by a cold rinse, softens the flavour while keeping their resilience. If this sounds like the kind of plant that would have helped people ride out hard times, that's because it did. Households leaned on it during the hunger gap, that late winter to early spring window when storage roots are dwindling, cabbages are tired, and new annuals haven't arrived. Even a small clump of Good King Henry gave a family something green, iron-rich, and satisfying weeks before the rest of the garden caught up. That's food security on a human scale, humble, dependable, and right outside the door. There's also a little cultural history baked in. Medieval healers used the leaves as poultices, and farmers tossed the high-protein seeds to chickens to keep flocks healthy. Whether or not you lean on folk remedies, the principle holds. A single perennial can feed people, animals, and soil without the annual churn of tilling and replanting. In permaculture terms, that stacking functions one root system doing multiple jobs, season after season. Now, if Good King Henry is your steady, reliable worker, the next perennial is your charismatic free spirit, fennel. It offers a completely different personality, sunny Mediterranean vibes, feathery fronds that look like green lace, crunchy bulbs that eat like sweet apples with a licorice kiss, and seeds that keep your spice jar interesting all year. Best of all, fennel doesn't wilt in the face of stress. Once established, it reaches down with a deep taproot and keeps growing when other plants are writing complaint letters about dry soil. But before we jump fully into fennel's world, bulbs, fronds, seeds, and even golden pollen, hold on to the bigger pattern that ties these plants together. Medieval gardeners weren't chasing novelty. They were building a dependable calendar of food. Good King Henry handled spring hunger, filling bowls with spears and leaves when fresh options were scarce. Lovage sat ready to turn every pot into dinner. Cardoon offered heft and comfort right through summer. Layering perennials meant fewer gaps, fewer emergencies, and less labor to get real calories on the table. If you're tired of coaxing fragile seedlings every year, this is your exit ramp. Plant once, harvest often, and let time do the heavy lifting. In part 3, we'll dig into fennel, how to get crisp, swollen bulbs without fuss, how to treat the fronds like a flavor tool instead of garnish, and why letting a few plants go to seed might be the most delicious mistake you ever make. Plus, we'll set you up to save fennel seed and even collect that sought-after pollen medieval cooks adored. Fennel is the plant that proves a vegetable can be both glamorous and tough. One look at those feathery fronds and you get the elegance. One bite of the crisp bulb and you understand the charm. But put a spade in the soil and you discover the real secret. Fennel earns its keep with a deep taproot that drills down into the ground, drinks from reserves most plants never reach, and keeps pushing new growth when the weather turns stingy. Medieval gardeners knew it as a plant you could trust through dry spells. Modern cooks love it because it tastes like licorice candy, and fresh apple had a flavorful child. Let's start in the kitchen, because that is where fennel wins hearts. The swollen white bulb has a clean crunch and a sweet anise note that plays well with both savory and bright flavors. Shave it thin for salads with lemon and olive oil. Roast wedges until the edges caramelize and the center turns silky. Tuck thick slices under a chicken so the pan juices drip through, and you will wonder why you ever used celery for that job. Then there are the fronds, those delicate green threads that look like dill's couture cousin. Medieval cooks would wrap fish in them before roasting. The fronds trap moisture, perfume the protein, and add a gentle anise flavor that tastes like a better sea breeze. Fennel is generous beyond the bulb and fronds. The plant's flowers mature into aromatic seeds that stock the pantry with a spice rack of possibilities. Grind them into sausage. Bloom them in oil for a quick pasta. Add them to bread, pickles, or braises. And if you leave a few umbels to dry at just the right moment, you can collect fennel pollen. It is the concentrated essence of the plant, a little golden dust that makes roasted vegetables and grilled meats taste like you snuck a professional chef into your kitchen. Medieval cooks prized it for a reason. A pinch goes a long way. Growing fennel is refreshingly straightforward. Give it full sun and well-drained soil. Slightly acidic ground suits it fine, but it does not need pampering. Because that taproot heads downward with determination, the plant tolerates light neglect better than most vegetables. If irrigation is inconsistent, fennel tends to shrug. In medieval hillside plots, a few robust plants would anchor a bed against erosion. In a backyard today, that same root allows the plant to soldier on, even when a hot week arrives without warning. Timing the harvest is simple. When the bulb reaches around tennis ball size, usually 12 to 14 weeks after sowing, you are in the sweet spot. Harvest by cutting just above the root crown, leaving some stem so the base stays intact while you work. Take fronds as needed all season. Snip lightly from multiple plants, and they will keep producing those lacy greens. If you want seed and pollen, let a few plants flower and mature. Think of your patch in thirds. Eat 1/3 now, dry another third later, and let the final third reseed itself so next year greets you with volunteer fennel in surprising corners. Self-sowing is part of fennel's charm. Drop a handful of seeds in spring and by autumn you may feel like the plant has multiplied behind your back. Medieval gardeners called that the garden that feeds itself. You might call it convenient. If you do not want fennel to wander, harvest seed heads before they shatter and mulch the bed well. If, on the other hand, you like gifts from last season's work, welcome the seedlings and thin them to strong individuals. In the kitchen, Treat each part with a method that respects its texture. Bulbs love contrast. Raw slices bring crunch to a bright salad. Roasted quarters love a hot oven and thyme, which transforms them from crisp to jammy at the edges. Fronds prefer gentle handling. Fold them into yogurt with lemon and salt for a fast sauce. Toss a fistful over grilled fish right before serving. Seeds want heat and fat. Warm a teaspoon in olive oil to wake their aroma before you sauté greens or start a tomato sauce. Pollen needs restraint. Sprinkle just enough to make a dish bloom without shouting, a small caution that reads more like a note of respect. Because fennel is assertive, it does not always play nicely with every plant in close quarters. Give it a bed where it can spread and self-sow without stepping on your most delicate seedlings. That is not a flaw. It is a reminder that fennel likes to run its own show. The payoff is a near-effortless supply of bulbs, fronds and spice, year after year. Now, as dependable as fennel is, the next plant laughs at the entire notion of fuss. If fennel feels like a well-trained friend, purslane is the wild cousin who shows up uninvited and ends up charming everybody. Most gardeners meet it as a weed, sneaking between paving stones or sprawling across bare soil after a heatwave. Medieval Europeans met it as a staple green and treated it like free treasure. They were right to do so, because purslane brings two superpowers that are tough to beat. It thrives in hot, miserable conditions, and it is shockingly nutritious. Let's tackle the nutrition first, because it is almost unbelievable. Purslane delivers more omega-3 fatty acids than many fish per serving. That means a quick handful of these succulent leaves is doing serious work for your heart and brain. Add in a payload of vitamin A, a respectable shot of vitamin C, and an array of minerals, and you begin to understand why cooks reached for it all summer long. The flavour helps too. The leaves are thick and juicy, like tiny water balloons, with a clean lemony snap. Eat them raw for crunch in a salad or a sandwich. Stir them into a soup at the end for brightness. Pair them with yogurt, garlic and mint for a cooling dip that can turn stale bread into an afternoon snack. Growing purslane is either the easiest thing you will do in the garden, or the easiest thing the garden will do for you. Scatter seeds in spring, and it will appear as soon as the soil warms. Or do nothing, and watch it volunteer in any open patch of dirt. The plant sprawls with red-green stems that hug the ground, radiating outward in a flat, sun-catching rosette. Those stems are masters of survival. Snap one by accident and it will root wherever it touches soil, cloning itself without ceremony. In a month, a bare spot becomes a green carpet. Purslane likes conditions that make other plants sulk. Poor soil is fine. Drought is fine. Full sun is better than fine. It wants heat and rewards it with constant new growth. The trade-off is season length. At the first real frost, purslane collapses. Medieval gardeners learned to harvest steadily through summer, knowing the party ends when cold arrives. That steady harvesting is not just practical, it is strategic. Snipping top growth encourages new, tender leaves, keeps mats from getting woody, and ensures you always have the freshest texture in the kitchen. A quick technique note for flavour. If you find the lemony tang a touch strong on its own, combine purslane with something creamy or starchy. Think potatoes, eggs, or beans. The plant's natural pectin gives soups a subtle body even without long simmering. Toss a handful into a chickpea stew at the last minute, and the broth turns silky. Add it to a frittata with parsley, and you have a dish that tastes like a garden after a rainstorm. People often ask, if purslane is this useful, why do so many gardeners pull it out? Habit, mostly. We learn to identify it as a weed and never relearn it as a crop. Medieval cooks did not have that hang-up. They used its speed and resilience to their advantage, filling salad bowls and kettles when lettuces had bolted and spinach had vanished. If your garden runs hot, or if you have a patch of ground that resists improvement, let purslane be your summer green. It is the resilience play you can eat. Between fennel and purslane, a theme becomes clear. Perennials and self-starters reduce your workload while extending your harvest window. Fennel plants themselves in the gaps and offers food at multiple stages. Purslane rushes in when heat shuts everything else down. Together they cover a tough part of the calendar. That is exactly how medieval kitchens stayed stocked. They stacked plants with complementary habits until hunger had nowhere to hide. Next up is a gentle herb with a very different temperament. While purslane basked in punishing sun, chervil preferred cool shade and quiet corners. It is not flashy, it is not loud, it is pure finesse. In part 4, we will step into those shadowed beds behind stone walls and show you how to grow chervil the medieval way, and cook with it like a French chef who knows that elegance can be simple. If purslane is summer's extrovert, chervil is spring's whisper. The herb that proves elegance can live in shade. Step behind a medieval cottage or along a monastery wall, and you'd find chervil tucked into the cool, damp border where many plants refuse to cooperate. That was not an accident. Gardeners back then understood chervil's temperament. It dislikes heat, hates being moved, and rewards patience with a flavour so refined that French cooks still protect it like a family heirloom. Think of it as parsley's soft-spoken cousin with a hint of anise, the herb you reach for when you want to turn pretty good into, oh, that's lovely. Let's start with the kitchen, because chervil's culinary voice is subtle and timing matters. The leaves are tender, lacy, and easily bruised, so you treat them like fresh silk, not denim. Chop them at the last moment and fold them into omelettes, chicken salads, spring soups, or a pan sauce just off the heat. High heat flattens chervil's perfume, gentle warmth coaxes it out. Classic French cooks blend it with parsley, tarragon, and chives to make fine herbs, the quiet quartet that gives scrambled eggs, soft cheeses, and delicate fish their lift. If parsley is the bass note and tarragon is the soloist, chervil is the shimmer on top, the difference between simple and elegant. Now, the growing. Chervil does not want drama, which is why transplanting it is almost guaranteed heartbreak. Those fine roots resent disturbance more than a cat resents bath time. The medieval solution is still the best one. Direct sow. Scratch a shallow furrow in early spring as soon as the soil can be worked. Scatter seeds with a light hand, cover with a dusting of soil, and water gently. Shade is your friend. A north-facing bed, the east side of a fence, or the dappled light beneath taller herbs will keep chervil cool and composed. If you garden where summers leap straight to hot, pick the shadiest functional corner you have. The plant will thank you by staying tender longer. Moisture is the other lever. Chervil likes consistently damp soil, not a swamp but never bone dry. In a medieval walled garden, thick stone moderated temperature and held humidity. You can mimic that by mulching with shredded leaves or fine bark. A thin mulch helps prevent the quick dry out that makes chervil bolt, sending up a flower stalk, making seed, and waving goodbye. If you do see a central stem elongate and leaves turning feathery, that's the plant announcing it's done with salad service. No panic, just cut your losses, harvest what's tender, and sow again. Which brings us to succession. The smartest chervil growers plant small amounts often. Sow a row in early spring. 2 or 3 weeks later, sow another. In late summer, when heat backs off, sow again for a fall crop. Each sowing is a fresh wave of delicate greens. Medieval gardeners did this naturally, scattering seed after each harvest the way bakers keep a starter going. The result? Chervil for months, without a calendar. Containers? Surprisingly doable if you respect the rules. Use a wide, shallow pot to keep soil evenly moist, and park it where it gets morning light and afternoon shade. Sow directly into the container. Don't start in trays. Water with a soft rose, never a blasting stream that compacts the surface and disturbs the seedlings. If your balcony bakes, set the pot behind a taller planter that throws dappled shade. Chervil prefers temperatures in the cool range, so if heat spikes, move the container indoors near a bright window until sanity returns. Harvesting is more ritual than chore. Wait until plants reach 5 to 6 inches, then begin snipping outer leaves with small scissors, always leaving the center intact. This cut-and-come-again method stretches each sowing. Because leaves bruise easily, gather them into a loose nest in your palm rather than crushing them into a tight fist. Wash quickly in cold water, pat dry on a towel, and use immediately. If you must hold them, roll the leaves gently in a barely damp paper towel and tuck into a container in the fridge for a few hours. Same day is best. Preservation is tricky because drying wipes out chervil's grace notes. Instead, preserve the flavor in fat or ice. Mash a handful of finely chopped chervil into softened butter with lemon zest and salt, then roll into a log and freeze. A coin of that butter dropped on hot fish, new potatoes, or scrambled eggs is instant spring, even in November. Or blitz chervil with olive oil and freeze in small cubes. 1 cube stirred into a pan sauce or a soup at the end wakes up a dish without announcing itself. Flavor pairings are simple. Chervil loves eggs, chicken, whitefish, young peas, asparagus, and baby potatoes. It gets along with lemon, creme fraiche, soft cheeses, and mild mushrooms. Think bright and gentle, not smoky and heavy. If you want to layer flavors from this series, pair chervil with a pinch of fennel pollen on roasted vegetables, or finish a good King Henry leaf sauté with chervil and lemon to add lift. It's a finishing herb you sprinkle, fold, and whisper, never shout. A word on bolting and seed. If a few plants insist on flowering, let them. The umbels are airy and pretty, and seed is useful. When the seed heads brown, snip and dry them in a paper bag, then shake out next season's sowings. Medieval cooks and gardeners rarely bought seed because the garden supplied it. You can do the same, building a small, self-renewing chervil loop that costs nothing and tastes like spring. Chervil also earns a spot for space efficiency. Plants stay compact, topping out around 1 foot to 1.5 feet, and fit where larger herbs won't. Tuck them at the feet of taller perennials to create understory production. The shade those big neighbors cast is a feature, not a bug. If you're building a layered perennial bed, lovage as the tall anchor, chervil as the ground-level accent, you're thinking exactly like a medieval gardener who squeezed value from every square foot. If you're the analytical type, here's the systems case for chervil. It fills a cold-weather niche that many herbs ignore. It thrives in low-light edges that would otherwise stay idle, and it turns quick harvests into immediate flavor. In a culinary niche focused on freshness and soft aromatics, it's indispensable. That's 3 hard-to-replace roles from a plant you sow by flicking your fingers and forgetting about for a week. Now, we've spent time with an herb that thrives on finesse. Let's swing to a green that succeeds on reliability: parsley. In a medieval kitchen worth its salt, parsley was everywhere not because it was exotic, but because it never failed and it made everything else taste better. Before we go there in the next part, a few bridge ideas to keep in mind. First, parsley and chervil are partners. Parsley is the sturdy backbone, chervil is the high note. Grow both and you have a flavor dial you can turn to suit almost any dish. Second, parsley tolerates more sun and a wider range of soils, so you can plant it where chervil would sulk and let chervil claim the cool shadows. Third, when you weave these herbs into a perennial and semi-perennial backbone lovage for savory structure, good King Henry for spring greens, fennel for bulbs and spice, purslane for heat, chervil for finesse, you get a garden that cooks for you as much as you cook from it. One last tip for chervil that doubles as a mindset. Don't chase perfection, chase continuity. If a sowing bolts, pull, re-sow, move on. If a bed gets too sunny by midsummer, let that patch rest and shift your fall sowing to deeper shade. Medieval gardeners didn't agonize over failure the way modern hobbyists do. They iterated, adjusted, and kept their bowls full. Do that with chervil, and you'll always have a handful of green lace to finish the dish that matters tonight. In part 5, we'll step into parsley's world, why it hung from rafters, how it freshens more than your breath, the companion planting effects medieval growers noticed long before the science caught up, and how to keep a small patch producing bucketfuls from spring to frost without turning your garden into a chore chart. If chervil is the whisper, parsley is the steady voice that holds the conversation together. Walk into any medieval kitchen with a smoking hearth and a pot murmuring on the trivet, and you'd spot bunches of parsley hanging from beams, a pestle-stained green on the table, and a cook who treats it like a daily essential rather than a garnish. That reputation wasn't built on looks, it was built on reliability. Parsley grows where other herbs hesitate, keeps producing when the season tilts in awkward directions, and wakes up tired food with crisp, green brightness. In a world without refrigerators, that mattered. In a modern kitchen aiming for flavor with minimal fuss, it still does. Let's tackle the culinary side first, because parsley's superpower is how effortlessly it lifts a dish. Flat leaf, often called Italian, parsley brings a clean, mineral, grassy note that snaps ingredients into focus. Curly parsley is milder, fluffier, and terrific for texture when you want a ruffled sprinkle that doesn't shout. Chop either fine and stir into hot broths and pan sauces right at the end so their volatile oils stay intact. Toss generous handfuls into grain salads, barley, farro, bulgur, and suddenly those earthy bases taste fresh. Combine with garlic and lemon zest, and you have an instant gremolata that makes braises, roasted vegetables, or fish taste like you added another hour of careful cooking. Blend with oil and vinegar for a fast chimichurri. Fold into yogurt with salt and a squeeze of lemon for a sauce that flirts with everything from chickpeas to grilled chicken. The point is simple. Parsley is not a decoration. It's a flavor tool. Then there's the medieval hack we've all quietly rediscovered. Chew a few leaves after a garlicky meal, and your breath behaves in polite company. The chlorophyll and essential oils don't just perfume. They actually help neutralize sulfur compounds. No mint required, just a quick nip from the bunch hanging near the door. In kitchens that ran heavy on preserved meats, alliums, and long-simmered pots, parsley was a palate reset button. Growing parsley is blessedly forgiving. It appreciates rich, moist soil, but unlike prima donnas that sulk in anything less than perfect loam, parsley adapts. Full sun? Fine. Part shade? Often better in hot summers because it holds tenderness. The one patience test is germination. Parsley seeds have a thick coat and can take 2 to 4 weeks to sprout. Medieval gardeners simply sowed thickly and waited. You can speed things up by soaking seeds overnight in warm water, or tucking them into damp paper towels for a day or two before sowing. But the old method works. Sow early, keep evenly moist, and trust time. Direct sowing is easiest. Scratch shallow furrows, scatter seed, cover lightly, and water with a gentle rose so you don't blast seeds away. Thin seedlings to 6 to 8 inches apart, or closer if you plan to harvest baby leaves regularly. If you like container culture, parsley obliges. Choose a pot at least 8 inches deep, use quality potting mix, and keep hydration steady. A container near your kitchen door earns its keep every single day. Maintenance is simple. Mulch lightly to keep moisture even and roots cool, and feed with compost or a dilute fish emulsion once a month if growth looks sluggish. The big mistake is harvesting timidly. Parsley thrives on the cut-and-come-again routine. Snip outer stems at the base, working around the plant, and it will push fresh growth from the center. Regular cutting keeps leaves tender and delays bolting. If a central stalk starts to elongate and a cluster of tiny flowers forms, the plant is declaring year 2 of its life, parsley is biennial, and preparing to set seed. You can let a few do it. Pollinators will be grateful, and you'll gather seed for next season. But keep a staggered patch going with new sowings every few weeks in spring and late summer, so you always have lush, leafy plants in the pipeline. Flavor strategy matters here. Think of parsley as your green amplifier. When a dish feels heavy or flat, parsley plus acid is your fix. Lemon juice, red wine vinegar, or even a spoon of brine from capers, combined with a fistful of chopped leaves, turns stew into supper. In a medieval potage built from barley and cured meat, a last-minute tumble of parsley would have been the difference between monotonous and lively. In your kitchen, the same move rescues Tuesday leftovers. Preservation? Drying is possible, but ends up muting parsley's best qualities. Medieval cooks did hang bunches to dry because it was practical, but they also used fresh constantly. For modern use, go with the freezer. Blitz a mound of parsley with olive oil and a pinch of salt into a spoonable paste, spoon into ice cube trays, freeze, and store the green bricks in a bag. Drop a cube into soups, sauces, and pan juices at the end for a pop of spring any time of year. Parsley butter finely chopped leaves, mashed into softened butter with lemon zest and a scrape of garlic, freezes beautifully and makes steaks, vegetables, or new potatoes taste like a weekend, even when it's Monday. Parsley's medieval reputation wasn't just culinary. Gardeners noticed that plants near parsley often fared better, long before anyone wrote about companion planting. Modern explanations point to habitat for beneficial insects and mild pest deterrents, but you don't need the theory to enjoy the results. Nestle parsley among carrots, onions, or tomatoes, and you'll often see livelier growth and fewer pest explosions. Place a ring of parsley around your fennel bed if you're letting fennel run its own show. The visual and insect diversity helps the whole patch. Variety choice is straightforward. Flat leaf types like Gigante d'Italia deliver assertive, clean flavor and broad leaves that are fast to chop. Curly types hold their shape for garnishes and salads and can be surprisingly flavorful if you grow a robust strain and harvest young. Grow both if you have room. The flat leaf handles cooking. The curly leaf adds texture and fresh crunch. A quick primer on season management. In cool spring weather, parsley hums along, building a base for summer. As heat arrives, give it afternoon shade if you can to keep leaves tender. Water in the morning to reduce stress and discourage fungal issues. If a plant bolts midsummer, Don't despair. Harvest what's usable, let it bloom if you want seed, and slot a fresh sowing into a slightly shadier strip for late summer and fall. In mild climates, you can nurse parsley through winter with a little protection, a cold frame, a cloche, or even a thick mulch blanket. In colder regions, late fall sowings sometimes overwinter, as seed and wake up early in spring. In the pot, parsley partners beautifully with almost every forever crop we've discussed. Good King Henry leaves sautéed with garlic. Finish with parsley and lemon to brighten the iron-rich flavour. Cardoon gratin. Scatter chopped parsley and toasted breadcrumbs over the top for texture and contrast. Roasted fennel tossed with a pinch of fennel pollen. Add parsley to bridge sweet anise notes with freshness. Even purslane, with its cool lemony crunch, loves a chopped parsley counterpoint in salads and dips. Let's also acknowledge parsley's role in stocks and broths. A simple bouquet garni parsley stems, a bay leaf and a sprig of thyme tied with string was a medieval and early modern kitchen staple. Drop it into simmering pots and fish it out at the end. You perfume the liquid without scattering leaves everywhere. Don't toss stems thoughtlessly. They carry enormous flavour. Keep a bag of stems in the freezer, and when you simmer bones or vegetables, add a handful. Your broth will taste cleaner, greener, and more finished. For the niche-minded creator or gardener, parsley is content gold because it's approachable. You can demonstrate beginner-friendly wins, soaking seeds, direct sowing, cut and come again harvesting, and tie them to high-impact cooking payoffs, gremolata, salsa verde, tabbouleh. It's a bridge plant, easy enough for a first garden, foundational enough for a seasoned cook, visually recognizable, and historically rooted. In other words, it belongs in any story about practical abundance. So far, our forever crop cast includes lovage for deep savoury structure, cardoon for bulk and drama, Good King Henry for triple duty greens, fennel for bulbs, fronds and spice, purslane for heat-proof nutrition, and chervil for finesse. Parsley now snaps all of that into sharper focus like a lens you twist until the scene clicks. But if you want to see medieval gardeners at their most ingenious, look to the perennials that stashed calories underground roots that tasted like treats and came back year after year. The next star wears the crown in that category. Skirret, a cluster, rooted sweet that monks ferried across Europe and cooks treated like candy before candy. It's the perennial answer to, what if carrots never needed replanting? And it's the plant that might change how you think about reliable, winter-ready food. In Part 6, we'll dig literally into skirret, how to establish a patch that multiplies on its own, how to harvest selectively so the plant keeps compounding, and how to cook those slender white roots so their natural sweetness shines in soups, roasts, and fritters worthy of a feast hall. Ever heard of a root crop so good medieval monks carried it from garden to garden like treasure? That's skirret. If parsley is the kitchen's reliable friend, and fennel is the elegant show-off, skirret is the quiet legend that almost disappeared because potatoes showed up and stole the spotlight. Which is kind of tragic because skirret solved a problem most modern gardeners still have. How do I get a sweet, starchy, winter-friendly vegetable that I don't have to replant every single year? Skirret looked at that question centuries ago and said, "Easy. Plant me once. Here's what makes it special. Skirret forms a clump of long, white, finger-like roots radiating from a central crown. Not one big root like a parsnip, but a whole bouquet of edible roots. Each of those is tender, mildly sweet, and tastes like someone crossed a young carrot with a parsnip and added a faint, nutty warmth. Leave the plant in the ground, and the crown thickens. Next year, more roots. Year after that, even more. You're not resowing a bed. You're mining a living root bank. Medieval cooks loved that for two reasons. First, flavour. Before cheap sugar, naturally sweet vegetables were prized. Skirret roasted in fat, simmered in pottage, or folded into meat pies gave dishes a gentle, comforting sweetness. Second, timing. Root crops that stay in the ground until you need them are insurance. You can dig skirret on a cold November morning when the rest of the garden looks dead and still come back with dinner. In a household that relied on what the land could produce, that was real security. So how do you grow it? Easier than carrots. More like perennial celery root. Skirret prefers moist, fertile soil that doesn't turn into a swamp. Think well-watered, but not waterlogged. Loam or a raised bed with compost is perfect. It will handle partial shade, which makes it useful beneath taller plants or on the east side of a building. That alone makes it more flexible than a lot of annual roots that demand full Sunday. If your soil is super heavy clay, loosen it with compost and a bit of sand so the roots can elongate without forking too badly. You can start skirret from seed, but seeds can be slow and variable. Medieval gardeners and anyone who wanted a guaranteed plant used divisions. That means taking a mature clump, breaking off sections that include part of the crown plus a few attached roots, and replanting those pieces. Each piece becomes a new plant. Do this in early spring or fall when temperatures are mild and soil is still moist. Plant divisions about a foot apart. Water them in well once, mulch around them to retain moisture, and they'll settle in. After that, skirret lives up to the forever crop idea. It's hardy, it handles cold, and once it's established, you mostly just keep weeds from bullying it. The first year, let it build itself. Don't go digging up the whole plant right away. You can sneak 1 or 2 roots to taste, but the real payoff comes in year 2 and beyond when the crown has bulked up. From then on, harvesting is a choose-your-own adventure. You can lift the whole plant, trim off most of the roots for the kitchen, then replant the crown so it regrows. Or, even better, you can dig carefully around one side, take a few of the thickest roots, and leave the rest undisturbed. That's the medieval way. Harvest selectively, keep the mother plant alive. It's like a savings account that earns interest. The more you leave, the more it multiplies. Let's talk cooking, because this is where skirret deserves a comeback. Young, slim roots can be eaten raw. Rinse well, trim the base, and crunch. They're sweet and mild, with none of the bitterness some people get from older parsnips. Larger roots are best peeled. The skin can be a little fibrous, and then treated like the best winter root you've ever met. Boil and mash with butter and herbs. Roast with carrots, onions, and fennel bulbs from your perennial patch. Slice and fry in a light batter like tempura. Medieval recipes even turned skirret into fritters, binding chopped, boiled roots with egg and flour and frying in fat. Serve that beside roasted meat and you've got tavern-level comfort food. There is one small quirk. Some skirret roots develop a tough central core, especially in older or drier conditions. It's not a deal-breaker. After boiling, just split the root and pull out the woody bit before serving. Good soil and steady moisture help reduce that problem. So if you're aiming for gourmet quality, keep the bed mulched. So why did we forget skirret? 2 words: potatoes and fashion. When potatoes arrived and spread, they offered big, uniform tubers that were fast to cook and easy to store. Farm systems shifted, cookbooks shifted, and plants that required a little more handwork, even ones that were perennial, slid into the background. Also, skirret doesn't transport well. It's great in a garden, less great as a commercial crop meant to ride in carts for days. So it retreated to monastery gardens, a few old estates, and then to seed savers and heritage growers, which is exactly why it's perfect for modern home gardeners and content creators. You can bring back something genuinely medieval, genuinely useful, and almost nobody else is growing it. Skirret also fits beautifully into a layered, low-input garden. Picture this: lovage towering in the back for all-purpose seasoning, fennel giving you bulbs and seeds, parsley and chervil filling the edges for daily cooking. Good King Henry making spring survivable. Then, under or beside all that, a silent row of skirret, thickening underground, ready for autumn. That's a pantry bed. That's 4 seasons of food from a tiny footprint. You don't get that from a row of annual lettuce that bolts in a week. You can even use skirret as a teaching plant in your niche. It shows the difference between annual thinking and perennial thinking. Annual thinking says, sow, tend, harvest, repeat. Perennial thinking says, invest, establish, harvest forever. Skirret is the root crop version of that philosophy. It's proof that medieval food systems weren't primitive. They were optimized for labor, saving, and survival. Storage is easy too. You can leave skirret in the ground and harvest as needed through winter, especially in milder climates, or with a straw mulch. Or you can lift roots, trim, and store in damp sand in a cool place like a cellar. That's exactly what medieval households did dig on a good day. Stash for a bad day. Unlike annual carrots, which you have to replant every year to refill your root cellar, Skirret just keeps refilling itself. Flavor pairing? Skirret loves butter, cream, parsley, thyme, bay, and a little nutmeg. Roast it with cardoon stems and a fennel bulb for a 100% forgotten medieval vegetable tray. Add skirret to a stew with lovage instead of celery. You get the aromatic base plus a sweet root, no replanting required. Puree boiled skirret with good stock and finish with chervil and cream for a smooth soup that tastes like it came out of a 14th century kitchen on feast day. Now that we've met the underground candy of the medieval garden, we should look at the other perennial. They refuse to be without one that fooled people into calling it a fruit and shows up when the garden still looks dead. Rhubarb. Plant it once, mulch it, and you get spring colour and tang for 20 or 30 years. It was medicine, it was dessert, it was timing. In part 7, we'll pull that bright red stalk out of the cold soil, explain how medieval cooks used it, and show why it belonged right beside skirret in the lineup of forever crops that never should have been forgotten. When the garden still looks like a graveyard of sticks and frost-burned stems, one plant steps up like it owns the calendar. Rhubarb. People love to argue about it. Fruit or vegetable? Pie plant or medicine chest? The answer is yes to all of it, because rhubarb is a multi-tool disguised as a handful of crimson spears. In a medieval setting, it arrived early, hit hard with flavour, and kept coming for decades with almost no fuss. Plant a crown once in rich, well-drained soil, and you can be harvesting stalks from the same clump when your kids are swapping stories about how you always made spring taste like a festival. Let us get the safety headline out of the way, because smart gardeners and smart cooks say it out loud. Eat the stalks. Do not eat the leaves. The leaves contain oxalic acid and other compounds that can make you very sick. The stalks are the part you want. Bright, tart, crunchy when raw, silky when cooked. That one rule has been known for a long time. Medieval households used the stalks in the kitchen and dried the roots for the apothecary shelf. Same plant, different purposes, clean boundary. Now the fun part. Why rhubarb makes sense for lazy or busy gardeners. You choose a site once, and you are basically set for the next 20 to 30 years. Give it morning sun and a little afternoon shade, if you garden where summers roast everything. Work in compost before planting. Set the crown 2 inches below the surface. Water it well the first season, then stop fussing. Each spring it sends thick buds that look like small prehistoric cabbages. A week later, those buds have exploded into giant petioles and you are holding a bouquet of sour promise. Timing is the real superpower. Rhubarb breaks dormancy when the rest of the garden is still yawning. That means fresh produce when your pantry is tired of jars and sacks. Medieval cooks leaned into that window. The first tarts of the season were often rhubarb tarts. The first syrups were rhubarb syrups. The first preserves to brighten porridge or bread were rhubarb preserves. They tasted like a door opening. If you run a kitchen today, you can use rhubarb to build the same feeling. When there is nothing else, there is rhubarb. Harvest technique keeps the plant healthy and your yields high. Do not cut stalks off at the top. Grasp a stalk near the base, twist gently, and pull upward. The stalk will release cleanly. That motion mimics how the plant sheds on its own and lowers the risk of rot at the crown. Take about 1/3 to 1/2 of the stalks at a time, then give the plant a week or two to rebuild. In the first year, resist temptation and let the plant establish. In year 2, pick lightly. From year 3 onward, harvest generously from spring into early summer. When hot weather hits, let the plant rest so it can store energy. If you want a second flush in fall in cooler climates, you can sometimes get it by keeping the plant mulched and watered. Feeding is simple. In early spring, layer compost or aged manure around the clump. That organic blanket fuels the new season and helps retain moisture. Mulch helps too. Straw or shredded leaves keep the soil cool and damp. Once established, rhubarb is incredibly forgiving. But like any heavy producer, it appreciates kindness at the start of the season. There is a theatrical trick you should know because medieval gardeners loved it, and it still works, forcing rhubarb. In late winter, cover a mature clump with a large pot, a forcing jar, or even a clean black trash can weighted so it does not blow away. You are excluding light and capturing a bit of ground warmth. 2 to 4 weeks later, lift the cover and you will find pale, blushed stalks that are sweeter and more tender than the regular crop. Those stalks go straight to the kitchen for the most delicate compotes and custard pairings. In Victorian times, entire cellars were devoted to forced rhubarb because restaurants paid well for that early ethereal flavor. Let us cook. Rhubarb works with both sweet and savory because its tartness is a lever, not a lock. For a fast sauce, cut stalks into short lengths, toss with sugar and a pinch of salt, and set over low heat. Do not add water. The plant carries its own. Stir as it relaxes into a glossy puddle. Now choose a path. Spoon warm sauce over yogurt. Pair with roast pork as a sharp counterpoint. Stir in ginger and orange zest for crepes. Or add cardamom and honey to pour over rice pudding. If you want structure rather than sauce, roast. Toss chunks of rhubarb with sugar and a splash of vanilla or lemon juice. Spread on a sheet pan and roast until edges caramelize and the centers hold their shape. Those jewel cubes fold into cakes. Scatter over pavlovas or sit beside grilled mackerel like a Nordic chef designed your dinner. Preservation multiplies the value of a single flush. Medieval cooks made syrups by simmering rhubarb with sugar and straining. You can do that and spike the syrup with fennel seed or lovage seed for a medieval nod. Store in the fridge and add to sparkling water, cocktails, or fruit salads. Jam is obvious, but think about ratios. Rhubarb and strawberry is classic because the berry provides aroma, while rhubarb supplies acidity and pectin. If you prefer solo rhubarb, keep the pieces chunky and add lemon to preserve that bright profile. On the savory side, try a chutney. Cook rhubarb with onion, vinegar, mustard seed, and a handful of raisins. Serve with cheese, cold chicken, or roasted roots. Your pantry suddenly knows how to talk to everything. You can also dry rhubarb into leather or small chips for trail mixes and teas. Slice thin, dust with sugar if you want, and dry low and slow until pliable or crisp. Medieval kitchens had hearths and warm lofts that doubled as dehydrators. Your oven or a rack in a sunny window does the same. One more history thread that shows how this plant straddled food and medicine. Apothecaries dried the thick, older roots as a prized digestive. Trade routes carried Asian rhubarb roots at high prices, while local gardeners grew garden rhubarb for both the table and the home remedy shelf. I am not giving medical advice, just reporting a pattern. The key point is this. Rhubarb occupied more than a pastry niche. It was a household asset that justified the garden space for decades. Design-wise, rhubarb earns its place as a structural plant. The leaves are huge and architectural. The stalks glow in early light. Use it as an anchor at the back of a perennial bed, with lovage on one flank and fennel on the other. Underplant with parsley and chervil to make shade count. Beside a fence, a rhubarb clump reads like a small shrub that happens to feed you. If you are building content in a garden niche, rhubarb looks great on camera from the moment those crimson pegs break the soil. Viewers feel the season change through that visual. Propagation is easy. After 5 to 8 years, if your clump loses vigor or crowds its space, divide it. Do this in early spring before strong growth, or in fall after the plant dies back. Lift the crown, cut it into sections with a sharp spade so each piece has at least one healthy bud and a chunk of root. Then replant those pieces at proper spacing. Water once, mulch, walk away. You just multiplied a long-term asset for the cost of 15 minutes. Common questions deserve clear answers. Do you have to remove flower stalks? You do not have to, but it helps. Flowering diverts energy. If you want maximum edible stalks, snap off flower spikes when they appear. Are green stalks edible? Yes. Color varies by variety and light. Flavor depends more on plant vigor and harvest timing than on how red the stalk looks. Can you compost the leaves? Yes. The oxalic acid breaks down in a compost system. Pairing rhubarb with our other forever crops turns the kitchen into a playground. A compote scented with chervil is delicate and surprising. A roasted side of cardoon ribs with a drizzle of rhubarb glaze pulls artichoke-like richness into a bright frame. A salad of shaved fennel, parsley, and a few paper-thin raw rhubarb slices dressed with olive oil and honey gives you crunch, perfume, and tang in one bowl. Even skirret enjoys the partnership. Serve fried skirret fritters with a rhubarb chutney, and you have a plate that tastes both comforting and old world. By now our cast is looking solid. Lovage for year-round savour, cardoon for mass and drama, good King Henry for triple-duty greens, fennel for bulbs, fronds, seed and pollen, purslane for hot weather nutrition, chervil for finesse in the shade, parsley for daily brightness, skirret for perennial sweetness and winter insurance. Rhubarb for early harvest and pantry magic. That is 8 of the 9 pillars. The final member is a giant with a medieval pedigree and a modern backyard attitude. It is bold enough for a border, generous enough for the table, and forgiving enough for beginners. In part 8, we will meet that last powerhouse and round out the set. You will see how it closes gaps in the harvest calendar, how to plant it so it takes care of itself, and how to cook it in ways that nod to medieval kitchens while feeling completely at home in a modern pan. We've met all 9 forever crops. Now it's time to make them earn their keep together, to turn a list of plants into a system that feeds you with less work than any annual patch you've ever struggled over. Think of this as building a medieval-style kitchen garden for a modern yard. Tight on space, high on output, resilient in weird weather. The goal is not perfection. The goal is continuity. If something fails, something else steps in. If you miss a chore, the garden forgives you. That's what these perennials were chosen to do for centuries. Start with the bones literally, the tall anchors. In the sunniest backline of your bed, give cardoon and lovage their throne. Cardoon brings height, silver-green drama, and pounds of edible ribs. Lovage is your seasoning engine, rising to shoulder height and broadcasting celery savour to the whole kitchen. Space them generously, 3 to 4 feet apart, because both mature into big personalities. Between and slightly in front of them, tuck rhubarb clumps like living punctuation marks. Rhubarb's giant leaves shade soil, suppress weeds, and announce spring with those crimson spears when everything else is still asleep. Next tier forward belongs to your midline workers. Fennel stands here, not sulking in the back, not hogging the front, putting up bulbs for the pan, fronds for fish, and umbels for seeds and pollen. Give it a little distance from delicate neighbours. Fennel is charismatic enough to want its own stage. Beside it, plant Good King Henry in clusters. It isn't showy, but it's your spring hunger gap specialist. Spears first, then spinach-like leaves, then broccoli-like buds. Let parsley knit the midline together. It's the green glue of the garden, happy in sun, happy in part shade, always on call for the kitchen. Now to the understory, the places most gardens waste. This is where medieval thinking shines. Use shade as a resource. On the cool, east-facing side of your taller plants, sow chervil in ribbons and refresh those sowings every few weeks in spring and again in late summer. Think of chervil as a finishing tap you can open any time a dish needs elegance. In partial shade near path edges, establish skirret. It doesn't demand the spotlight. It wants steady moisture and quiet roots so it can build a bank of sweet white fingers underground. Leave open, sun-baked patches between stepping stones for purslane to volunteer. You don't so much plant purslane as curate its enthusiasm, trim, taste, repeat until frost. If you prefer a plan, you can draw on graph paper. Picture a 10 by 12 foot rectangle. Back row, south to north sun in the northern hemisphere. Cardoon, rhubarb, lovage, rhubarb. Cardoon 5 anchors spaced about 3 feet apart, staggered if the bed is deep. Mid-row, fennel at each third, with 2 or 3 Good King Henry clumps between. Then bands of parsley running across the row like green threads to fill gaps and feed the kitchen daily. Front row, chervil in 2 wavy ribbons that you sow by season, and a skirret strip along the path where soil stays evenly moist. Leave a couple of sunny pockets bare for purslane to claim, or scatter a pinch of seed and let heat do the rest. That single rectangle can produce seasoning, salads, spring greens, roasting trays, stews, pickles, preserves, spice, and dessert fillings for months. More important, it produces a harvest calendar you can set your channel by. Here's that calendar in plain language. Late winter to very early spring. If you force rhubarb under a dark pot, you'll harvest blushed, tender stalks first. Good King Henry's asparagus. Like shoots arrive next, just when you crave green. Parsley wakes early in mild climates. Protect a winter sowing with a simple cloche, and you'll have stems while neighbours are still flipping through seed catalogues. Chervil sown in the first workable soil gives you lace in your omelettes before the maples leaf out. Mid to late spring, Good King Henry shifts into spinach mode. Harvest outer leaves often. Parsley gains momentum. Fennel builds bulbs. Don't rush the harvest. If you blanched cardoon ribs with wraps, they're tender now. Rhubarb is in full cry harvest by twist and pull, leaving a third of the stalks to power the clump. Chervil hits its stride. Re-sow if any row bolts. Purslane begins to show up as warmth settles in. Summer. Purslane takes center stage for salads, dips, and late-minute soup brightening. Fennel bulbs hit tennis, ball girth, and bring crunch to grills and roasts. Cardoon provides bulk for gratins and braises. Parsley is a daily harvest. Keep snipping to delay flowering. Good King Henry offers those mini broccoli bud clusters. Nip them before bloom. Chervil needs shade and cool. Pause sowing during heat spikes and resume late summer. Rhubarb rests, let it refill its crown. Fall. Fennel flowers maturing. Gather seed. Shake a few umbels for golden pollen. Skirret roots prime after a kiss of frost, dig selectively and leave mother crowns. Good King Henry puts on a second leaf push in cooler air. Chervil returns with fall sowings. Parsley sweetens in chill and may overwinter. Rhubarb enjoys a last tidy up. Remove tattered leaves after frost and mulch the crown for winter. Winter. In mild zones or under straw, skirret stays in the ground like a living cellar. Parsley often hides under insulating snow and resurfaces green on thaws. Plan divisions. A mature rhubarb crown can be split. Lovage too if clumps outgrow their space. That's free propagation. Water and soil management are where perennials prove their value. Instead of tilling every year, you're top dressing. In early spring, spread a 2-inch layer of compost around everything. Mulch after soil's warm. Straw around skirret and Good King Henry, chopped leaves under rhubarb and cardoon, a light mulch around parsley to steady moisture. Fennel wants drainage more than mulch. Use gravelly compost if your soil holds water. Lovage is the one plant that appreciates consistently moist soil. Its flavor stays clean and vivid when it isn't stressed. Pest pressure is typically lower in perennial systems because you aren't leaving fresh, tender annual rows unguarded. Still, a few notes. Slugs like the cool, moist corners where chervil and skirret live. Counter with copper tape on bed edges, rough textured mulches, or beer traps if you must. Swallowtail caterpillars adore fennel. Consider them part of your pollinator budget and plant enough to share. If rabbits find Good King Henry in spring, a low mesh collar for a month saves the first flush. Harvest discipline is the habit that keeps the pantry full. Don't strip any one plant to nothing, take a little from many. With parsley and chervil, that means outer leaves. With Good King Henry, spears first, then rotating leaf harvests. With fennel, leave some bulbs to flower for seed and pollinators. With cardoon, harvest ribs in batches and let the plant rebuild. Rhubarb's twist and pull rule prevents crown rot and keeps the clump vigorous for decades. Skirret rewards selective digging. Think of it as thinning carrots in slow motion over years. Propagation is your compounding engine. Divide rhubarb every 5 to 8 years when vigor dips. Replant divisions and gift extras, or film a giveaway for your audience. Lift and split lovage in early spring. Skirret divisions are as simple as breaking off crown segments with attached roots. Good King Henry can be divided too. Parsley and chervil stay on the seed cycle, save your own and resow. Fennel? Let a few umbels shatter, and you'll greet a new generation next year without opening a packet. Cooking strategy ties the whole system into dinner. Build a weekly rhythm that mirrors your garden's pace. Early in the week, brothy soups finished with parsley and chervil, a skillet of Good King Henry leaves, and rhubarb compote. Midweek, roasted fennel and cardoon with a gremolata, parsley, lemon, garlic, skirret fritters on the side. Weekend, long braise with cardoon ribs, a salad of purslane and shaved fennel fronds, and a tart that marries rhubarb with whatever fruit is running. Sprinkle fennel pollen like a secret handshake. Use lovage seeds in pickles and spice rubs. You aren't just eating a garden, you're running a medieval pantry with modern timing. Most importantly, designed for story as much as for food. A bed that changes visibly every few weeks keeps your camera fed with B-roll. The first rhubarb nubs, the straw wrap around bleaching cardoon, the ember yellow fennel umbels. The moment a skirret crown lifts to show a fistful of sweet white roots. Your viewers feel the through line because the garden itself has a plot. The cast enters, exits, returns, and grows older alongside you. This is the payoff of perennial thinking. You invest once, then harvest reliability. You don't panic when a heatwave hits purslane takes the call. You don't mourn when annual spinach bolts. Good King Henry is already at the door. You don't stand in a grocery aisle arguing with limp celery lovage is steps away. And when the first frost smokes across the beds, you smile because you know there's skirret below, parsley under the mulch, and rhubarb dreaming of spring. In Part 9, we'll get tactical. Exact spacing guides, bed diagrams for balconies and patios, soil recipes that match each plant's temperament, and 3 plug-and-play layouts, 4 times 8 feet, 8 times 8 feet, and a border design. You can copy tomorrow and start filming before the weekend. Let's get tactical and turn ideas into beds you can actually plant, film, and cook from. Think of this part as your blueprint set. Exact spacings, simple soil recipes, water routines, and plug-and-play layouts you can copy today. We will keep everything beginner-friendly but robust enough for a long season in real weather. Use this as a scriptable checklist on camera. Prep, plant, mulch, harvest, repeat. First, spacing and siting by plant so you can mix and match without guesswork. Lovage. Full sun to light afternoon shade. Final spacing 30 to 36 inches. Root goes deep, so plan for permanence. Soil preference is rich, evenly moist loam. Add compost at planting and refresh every spring. Keep a light mulch so the flavor stays clean and the stems do not stress in heat. Cardoon. Full Sunday. Final spacing 36 inches. If you can give 40 inches, do it. Soil should be well drained and fertile. Blend in coarse compost for structure. Water to establish, then let roots do their job. If you plan to blanch ribs, leave access around the plant so you can wrap easily. Rhubarb. Morning sun. Afternoon shade in hot regions. Final spacing 36 inches per crown. Plant crowns 2 inches below the surface. Likes rich moisture, holding soil. Top dress in spring with compost or aged manure. Mulch to keep crowns cool. Twist pull to harvest, never cut. Fennel. Bulbing. Full Sunday spacing 12 to 15 inches between plants, 18 inches between rows. Prefers drainage more than richness. A sandy compost blend is ideal. Water steadily in the bulbing stage to avoid stress cracks. Let a few plants flower for seed and pollen. Good King Henry. Sun to part shade. Spacing 12 to 18 inches. Likes average garden loam with compost top dressing each spring. Mulch to steady moisture. Harvest spears sparingly in year 1, then move to leaf harvest in year 2. Parsley. Sun to part shade. Spacing 8 to 10 inches. Loves consistent moisture and decent soil but adapts well. Expect slow germination. Soak seeds overnight or pre-sprout in damp towels for faster starts. Chervil. Dappled, shade to shade. Spacing 6 to 8 inches. Direct, sow only. Keeps soil evenly moist. Succession sow every 2 to 3 weeks in spring and again in late summer. Skirret. Part sun is fine. Spacing 12 inches. Prefers moist loam and dislikes waterlogging. Mulch to hold moisture. Harvest selectively from year 2 onward. Purslane. Full Sunday. Let it colonize warm, open patches or sow lightly. Thin mats to keep growth tender. Treat as a curated volunteer rather than a strict row crop. Soil recipes that match temperament and keep things simple. Base mix for beds. 60% native soil, 30% finished compost, 10% coarse mineral, coarse sand or small gravel, worked into the top 8 to 10 inches. This buffers most pH quirks and supports drainage without drying out. Drainage lovers like fennel and cardoon. Add an extra 10% coarse mineral to the top 6 inches, or mound the row 3 to 4 inches above grade. You want water to pass, not pool. Moisture keepers like rhubarb, Good King Henry, and skirret work in a little more organic matter. Aim for 40% compost in the top 6 inches, then mulch 2 inches deep once the soil warms. Shade bed herbs like chervil. Same base mix, but add a thin leaf mold cap if you have it. Leaf mold holds moisture and keeps surface temperatures down. Water schedule that does not rule your life. Establishment phase, weeks 1 to 3 after planting. Deep soak once or twice per week, depending on heat. Aim for slow watering that penetrates 6 to 8 inches. You can show a simple probe test on camera. Push a screwdriver into the soil. If it bottoms out easily, moisture is adequate. Maintenance phase. Shift to a single deep soak every 7 to 10 days in normal weather. In heat waves, add 1 extra soak. Focus water on lovage, Good King Henry, and skirret. Fennel tolerates a mist better than most once rooted. Rhubarb appreciates steady moisture in spring. Then you can ease off by midsummer when you pause harvest. Mulch rules that save the day. Mulch after the soil has warmed, not too early in spring. Straw around skirret and good King Henry. Shredded leaves around rhubarb and lovage. A light bark or leaf mulch in the chervil ribbon to buffer evaporation. Avoid heavy mulch up against fennel bulbs. Leave a small bare collar so bases stay dry. Now the layouts. 3 ready-to-use designs you can copy line for line. Layout A. 4 by 8 feet raised bed. Small but mighty. Think of this as the starter kit for a balcony-adjacent patio or a town yard. The short edges are 4 feet. Stand on the long sides to plant and harvest. Back row along the 8-foot edge. Left corner cardoon, right corner lovage. Center back 1 rhubarb. This triangle creates height without blocking light. Middle band. 2 fennel at 2 foot and 6 foot marks. Between them, 2 good King Henry clumps at 3 foot and 5 foot marks. Thread a 6-inch wide parsley ribbon in a shallow trench across the midline. Front band along the 8-foot edge. A wavy chervil ribbon about 8 inches wide, sewn in a zigzag so it looks full on camera. Leave 2 open sun puddles the size of dinner plates near the corners for purslane to claim. Access paths. None needed inside because the bed is narrow. Mulch the perimeter so you can kneel without muddy knees. What you get: early rhubarb, spring spears and leaves from good King Henry, daily parsley, summer fennel, fall fennel seed, cardoon ribs for gratins, chervil for finishing, and a constant trickle of purslane. Film progression shots from the same corner to build continuity. Layout B. 8 by 8 feet square, family kitchen bed. Use a simple grid to keep spacing clean and storytelling clear. Corners. Cardoon in the northwest and southeast corners. Lovage in the northeast corner. Rhubarb in the southwest corner. This diagonal weight keeps the bed balanced on camera. Inner grid at 2-foot spacing. 4 fennel set like a diamond around center. 4 good King Henry in the spaces between fennel and anchors. 2 skirret strips, each 8 feet long by 12 inches wide, run along the east and west edges just inside the anchors. A broad parsley ribbon crosses the bed north to south. Chervil in 2 crescent beds on the north and east inside edges, tucked into shade lines from tall plants. Leave bare sun plates near the center path stones for purslane. Paths. Lay 2 stepping stones crossing the center in a plus sign so you can reach every quadrant without compressing soil. What you get: harvest every day without overcutting any plant. You can film 4 quadrants as mini episodes. West skirret dig, north chervil cut, east fennel seed harvest, south cardoon blanch reveal. Layout C. Perennial border along a fence, 2.5 feet deep by any length. Backline against fence. Alternate cardoon and rhubarb every 3 to 3.5 feet. Drop a lovage every 8 feet as a vertical accent. Midline. Stagger fennel bulbs between anchors at 18-inch intervals. Tuck good King Henry, where the shade pattern gives them afternoon relief. Front edge. A rolling ribbon of parsley the whole length. Punctuate with chervil patches in the shadier pockets. Skirret in clumps at downspout, adjacent spots where soil stays moist but not flooded. Purslane will claim the sunny gaps near pathstones. Embrace it. Why a border? It looks like landscaping, not a vegetable plot. You get food without inviting HOA arguments. On camera, it reads as a lush, ornamental band that happens to be dinner. Container playbook for balconies and patios. Lovage, half barrel minimum, 1 plant per barrel. Top dress yearly. Cardoon, half barrel or a 20-inch pot. Stake in windy sites. Rhubarb, half barrel only. Do not crowd. Keep evenly moist. Fennel, 12-inch deep pot, 1 plant each. Stagger sowings for continuous bulbs. Good King Henry, 12-inch pot, 1 clump. Mulch the top. Overwinters in containers in mild zones with protection. Parsley, 8 to 12-inch pots, 2 to 3 plants per pot. Place by the door for daily cuts. Chervil, broad, shallow bowl planters. Direct sow and re-sow often. Shade the container. Skirret, 14-inch deep pot minimum. Keep evenly moist. Purslane, any sunny container. It will show up or you can seed it. Soil for containers. 50% high-quality potting mix, 30% compost, 20% coarse mineral. Add a slow-release organic fertilizer at label rate. Water containers more often than beds. Wick-style reservoirs are great on film and reduce misses. Step-by-step seasonal script. you can lift into a video outline. Early spring week 1. Top dress beds with compost. Divide rhubarb or lovage if needed. Direct sow chervil and parsley. Plant Good King Henry divisions. Plant skirret divisions. Force 1 rhubarb crown if you want a dramatic reveal episode. Week 2 to 4. Plant fennel transplants or direct sow if frost risk has passed. Set cardoon and lovage if not already in. Mulch after soil warms. Install 2 straw wraps on a cardoon to demonstrate blanching. Late spring. First Good King Henry spear harvest. Rhubarb twist, pull demo. Parsley cut and come technique. Chervil fines herbs segment. Summer. Fennel bulb harvest and frond fish wrap. Purslane salad and storage tips. Cardoon gratin cook, along. Save fennel pollen and seed on camera. Fall. Skirret selective dig. Good King Henry. Mini broccoli saute. Parsley freezing into cubes. Bed cleanup minus tilling. Mulch crowns. Winter. On. Screen pantry, shot with rhubarb syrup, fennel seed, lovage salt, and skirret in sand. Planning grid for spring. Finally, a quick troubleshooting table for common pain points. Bolting chervil. Too warm or too dry. Move to deeper shade and resow. Mulch thinly. Bitter Good King Henry leaves. Heat stress. Shift harvest to morning and give partial shade. Use a quick blanch. Stringy skirret roots. Dry soil or older roots. Maintain mulch and moisture. Boil, then remove the core before serving. Floppy fennel bulbs. Crowding or too much nitrogen. Thin to proper spacing and ease off high-N feeds. Rhubarb slump in midsummer. Normal. Stop harvesting and water weekly until fall. Resume in cool weather if a second flush appears. With these measurements and maps, you can build a bed that performs like a set and a pantry at the same time. In Part 10, we will go deep on kitchen workflows and recipes that match the harvest calendar, plus a filming plan that turns each crop into recurring segments your audience will look forward to all year. You've got the beds planned, the perennials planted, and a camera itching for B-roll. Now we turn the garden into meals with a weekly kitchen workflow you can actually live with, plus a filming plan that turns your harvest into a repeatable show your audience will anticipate. Think of this part as what to do every week so dinner happens without drama, and how to film it so your viewers feel like they can do it too. Let's start with a simple rhythm. Harvest day, prep day, cook days, pantry day. 4 beats, repeat forever. You'll be amazed how calmly your week runs once these are muscle memory. Harvest day, fast, visual, satisfying. Morning walkthrough. Bring a shallow tray, shears, and a bowl of cold water. Cut out a parsley stems at the base from multiple plants. Snip a fistful of chervil tips. Twist pull a few rhubarb stalks if it's spring. And lift 1 fennel bulb at tennis ball size. If cardoon ribs are ready, take a batch, leaving the plant vigorous. For Good King Henry, either snap a few asparagus-like spears, early season, or harvest a ring of outer leaves. In heat, pinch purslane tops to keep growth tender. In fall, do a selective skirret dig, pry aside, wiggle out a handful of thick roots, and tuck soil back. On-camera beats. Open with 2 minutes to dinner insurance. Show twist, pull on rhubarb, base, cut on parsley, outer leaf harvest on Good King Henry. Always film a quick what's in the tray overhead, it anchors the episode and gives you a thumbnail frame. Prep day, no cooking, all set up. Wash and spin. Rinse parsley and chervil quickly in cold water. Spin dry. Roll loosely in a damp towel and fridge. Demonstrate gentle handling for chervil, so viewers see how little bruising matters. 2 green foundations. Parsley pistou. Blitz 3 packed cups. Parsley leaves, 1 garlic clove, big pinch of salt, and 1/2 cup olive oil to a spoonable paste. Jar it, label, and refrigerate. This is your week-long green amplifier. 1 spoon wakes up anything. Fines herbs butter. Mash 1/2 cup. Softened butter with 1/4 cup. Very finely chopped chervil and parsley, lemon zest, and a pinch of salt. Roll in parchment into a log and chill. Slice coins as needed. Viewers love this coin reveal. It reads like pro kitchen. Trim and store. Trim fennel fronds and freeze them flat in a zip bag for fish wraps. Cut the bulb into wedges and stash in water with a squeeze of lemon to hold 2 days. Cardoon ribs. Peel strings, cut into batons, and drop into a lemony water bowl to prevent browning. For good King Henry leaves, blanch 1 minute in salted water, ice shock, squeeze dry, and refrigerate now they're ready to drop into eggs, pastas, or soups in seconds. Pantry setups. If it's rhubarb season, simmer a small batch of rhubarb sauce, no water, just sugar and a pinch salt, and jar it. If fennel is flowering, shake pollen into a paper bag over a tray. If you harvested lovage seeds last week, make lovage salt. Blitz 1 tablespoon seeds with a 1/4 cup flaky salt. Label jars with dates on camera. Audiences trust you more when they see organization. Cook days, 3 quick formats you can rotate. 5-minute finishes, weeknight rescues. These are the I'm starving plays. Sauté blanched good King Henry leaves in olive oil with 1 coin of the fines herbs butter. Finish with lemon, or toss hot pasta with 2 spoons of parsley pistou, shaved fennel, toasted breadcrumbs, and a dust of fennel pollen. Or make purslane eggs. Soft scramble, fold in chopped purslane off, heat, finish with a parsley shower. Film these in a single, overhead shot with a timer visible. Your audience feels the pace. Sheet pan suppers, hands off, cinematic. Roast fennel wedges and cardoon batons, tossed with olive oil and salt until edges caramelize. Add skirret chunks in the last 15 minutes if you have them. Pull the pan, shower with gremolata, parsley, garlic, lemon zest, and a sprinkle of lovage salt. Optional. Dollop of rhubarb chutney on the side for acidic contrast. These look gorgeous in a 2-camera setup. 1 wide, 1 close for steam and sizzle. Broth plus bright, economical, medieval modern. Simmer a quick potage, onion, barley, a lovage seed pinch, and scraps of vegetable trim. In the last 5 minutes, drop in chopped good King Henry, a handful of purslane, and fennel frond ties. Off heat, stir in a spoon of parsley pistou. Garnish with chervil. The story beat is transformation. Brown simmer turns vivid green at the end, a money shot for retention. Weekend feature. 1 longer cook. Filmable arc. Choose 1 centerpiece weekly. Cardoon gratin with cream and nutmeg. Braised chicken over a bed of fennel and skirret. Rhubarb. Glazed pork with purslane salad. Good King Henry lasagna layers with ricotta and herbs. Tease it on harvest day, prep components on prep day, and cook on the weekend so the storyline spans episodes. This gives your channel a mini-series feel. Recipe capsule, copie divisée par pasta script bloc, shaved fennel and herb salad. Thinly slice 1 fennel bulb. Toss with lemon, olive oil, pinch of salt, and a small coin of the fines herbs butter melted into the dressing. Fold in torn parsley and chervil. Optional. Paper-thin raw rhubarb. Half moons for sparkle. Plate wide for shadows. Finish with a dusting of fennel pollen. Good King Henry green rice. Saute onion in olive oil, add rice, toast, then add stock. Midway, stir in blanched, chopped good King Henry leaves. Finish with parsley pistou and lemon. Top with chopped parsley and toasted seeds, pumpkin or sunflower. On camera, do the green reveal when pistou hits the pot. Cardoon à la parmigiana. Boil peeled cardoon batons in salted water until just tender. Layer in a skillet with tomato passata, parsley, and grated cheese. Bake until bubbling. Garnish with chopped parsley and a thread of olive oil. Serve with shaved fennel salad on the side to balance richness. Skirret fritters. Boil peeled skirret until tender. Rough, mash with salt, pepper, chopped parsley, and an egg. Form small patties, dust with flour, and pan fry. Serve with rhubarb chutney or a yogurt chervil sauce. Close-up sizzling audio sells this. Purslane tabbouleh remix. Bulgur soaked in hot water, then fluffed with parsley, chervil, chopped purslane, lemon, olive oil, and a grated garlic clove. This is your hot day no-stove meal. Photograph in a shallow bowl so herbs read as confetti. Filming plan. Repeatable segments. Igual a loyal viewers. Anchor your show with recurring bits your audience can count on. Tray truths. 60-90 seconds. Every harvest day, empty the tray on a board, call each item by name, and give 1 line of use. This rhythmic roll call builds familiarity. Lovage for stock, parsley for brightness, good King Henry for the pan, fennel for crunch, chervil to finish. 1 spoon save, 30-45 seconds. Show how a single spoon of parsley pesto or a coin of herb butter rescues a tired dish. It's the easiest, most repeatable hack and delivers instant value. Plant versus grocery, 90 seconds. Put store celery next to lovage. Supermarket broccoli next to Good King Henry buds. Jarred fennel seed next to your fresh pollen. Taste on camera. Viewers love side-by-sides because they answer why bother without lectures. Medieval move of the week, 60 seconds. Forcing rhubarb, blanching cardoon in straw, bouquet garni with parsley stems, selective skirret digging. One technique, one take, one reason it still works. Pantry stack, monthly. Quick montage of jars, rhubarb syrup, lovage salt, fennel seed, frozen parsley cubes. Add dates on labels and a single sentence about how you used each this month. It turns preservation into narrative, not homework. Audio divided by visual notes that lift your production, microbeats. Catch the twist pull, click on rhubarb, the squeak of shaved fennel against a mandoline, the crackle when parsley hits hot oil for a quick fry garnish. These sounds keep viewers in the kitchen with you. Colour and steam. Perennial cooking is green forward. Plate on light, matte dishes so parsley and chervil pop. When you open the oven on a sheet pan supper, angle lights to catch steam plumes. Steam is emotion on camera. Hands and knives. Keep knives visible when chopping herbs. Viewers measure skill by cadence. Use a claw grip, talk through it once, then let the rhythm reassure them. B-roll library. Film close-ups of fennel umbels swaying. Bees on cardoon flowers. Dew on parsley. Purslane spreading between stones. Skirret roots fanning from a lifted crown. These clips become evergreen cutaways when you need pacing space. Scheduling for sanity and retention. Publish cadence. 2 short harvests divided by prep reels early week. 1 weeknight 5-minute finisher and 1 weekend feature. Total. 4 hits that combine to feel like a mini season every week. Seasonal arcs. Build 4 arcs a year. Spring hunger gap. Good King Henry rhubarb. High summer heat. Purslane. Fennel bulbs. Early autumn abundance. Fennel seed divided by pollen. Skirret, cardoon, winter pantry. Preserves, stock, planning. Start each arc with a what's coming teaser and end with a montage of meals viewers can replicate. CTAs with purpose. If you planted along with layout A, this week harvest Good King Henry outer leaves and try the green rice. Tag me with your plate. Ground calls to action in the exact plants and recipes you showed. Troubleshooting on air. Build trust by showing fixes. Bitter leaves. Blanch Good King Henry and finish with fat plus acid. On camera, do the blanch bowl side by side with raw. Taste both. Stringy cardoon? You didn't peel enough strings. Show the peel angle and the bend test. If it snaps clean, you're good. Limp parsley? Shock in ice water 5 minutes. Spin dry and use immediately in pesto. Viewers need to see resurrection, not just perfection. With this workflow, your garden feeds a kitchen and your kitchen feeds a show. You're not chasing novelty. You're building reliability, the exact quality medieval cooks prized and modern audiences crave. In part 11, we'll layer in preservation deep dives and cost math. How much food and value a single 4x8 bed can produce across a year. What to freeze, what to dry, what to jar, and how to script those choices so every preservation segment feels like money in the bank rather than homework. Preservation is the bridge between nice harvest and we actually ate differently this year. It's also where a perennial garden turns into an asset you can measure. In this part, we'll go deeper on what to freeze, what to dry, what to jar, and what to stash in sand like a medieval cellar. Plus straightforward cost math. You can lay over a 4x8 bed to show your audience the dollars and dinners case for forever crops. The goal isn't survivalist theatre. It's calm abundance, a pantry that grows by habit, not heroics. First, the golden rule. Preserve peak, not leftovers. You'll always be tempted to rescue limp herbs or overgrown bulbs, but preserved flavour starts with prime produce. Use harvest day to decide your preservation targets. Use pantry day to execute. Think about forms that multiply uses, not single-purpose darlings. Every jar, bag or brick should plug into multiple weeknight moves. Frites, fresh flavour, mini marguerite, parsley pesto bricks. You've already made parsley pesto on prep day. Portion it into silicone ice trays, freeze, then bag and date. One bed-grown parsley ribbon yields 20-30 cubes per month in peak season. Each cube is a 5-minute dinner insurance policy. Green rice, pan sauce, soup finisher, grain salad, chervil herb butter coins. Drying erases chervil's perfume. Freezing in fat preserves it. Stack sliced coins between parchment in a box so you can grab one at a time. One ribbon sewing can produce 30-40 coins in spring and again in fall. Teach viewers to mark a "Finds Herbies" line on the coin roll with a Sharpie for easy grabs mid-service. Good King Henry blanched greens. Blanch leaves 1 minute, ice, shock, squeeze. Press into thin slabs in a zip bag and freeze flat. Snap off what you need, like frozen spinach, but tastier and sturdier. One mature clump easily yields 2-3 pounds across spring and fall, translating to a dozen green add-ins for soups, pastas and eggs. Fennel fronds and slices. Fronds freeze shockingly well if laid flat first, then bagged. They go straight into fish wraps and broths. Bulb slices, par frozen on a tray, then bagged. Roast beautifully from frozen. Label raw versus par roasted, so you know which path is faster on a Tuesday. Rhubarb roasted cubes. Roast lightly sweetened chunks until just tender, cool, freeze on a tray, then bag. They hold shape in the freezer and reheat into pies, buckles, yogurt toppers, or quick pan sauces for pork. Skirret blanched batons. Boil peeled batons until barely tender, chill, freeze in a single layer. Later they go straight into hot oil for crisping, or into soups for instant body. Dry, shelf-stable, space-efficient, fennel seed and pollen. Pick umbels when seeds are brown but not shattered. Dry on trays in a warm, airy spot. Then rub off seed. For pollen, bag the yellow umbels and shake like gold prospector B-roll. Store both airtight, away from light. Seed is your sausage and pickle spice. Pollen is your finishing dust. Lovage seed and leaf. Seeds blitzed with salt become lovage salt or celery. Umami multiplier for roasted roots and meats. Leaves do dry, though flavour softens. Better as part of a soup jar with bay and thyme, ready to toss into broths. Purslane crisps or powder. Dehydrate small sprigs until crisp. Crumble into a tangy omega, rich sprinkle for popcorn or salads, or grind into a bright green powder that wakes vinaigrettes. It's a sleeper product segment, from weed to pantry confetti. Rhubarb leather. Simmer with sugar and lemon, puree, spread thin, dry until flexible, and cut into strips. Shelf candy with real acidity. On camera, roll them like ribbons and jar for a visual win. Jar flavor concentrates and grab and go. Rhubarb syrup. 1 kilogram chopped stalks, 500 grams sugar, pinch salt. Simmer until juicy. Strain. Bottle and refrigerate or water. Bath can if you do canning. Use in spritzers, cocktails, fruit salads, glazes. Rhubarb chutney. Rhubarb, onion, vinegar, mustard seed, ginger, raisins. Jar and refrigerate. It turns cold meat and toast into lunch. Make this a seasonal anchor. Viewers remember Chutney Week. Parsley capers. Buds of Good King Henry, or fennel's green seeds brined like capers, then stored in vinegar brine with parsley stems. Adds salty pop to eggs and fish. Fennel frond oil. Blend fronds with neutral oil, strain. A neon green drizzle that's shelf. Stable in the fridge a week and freezable in cubes. Finish plates with a drop for restaurant sheen. Cellar, medieval style low-tech. Skirret in sand. Trim leaves, brush soil off, don't wash, and bury roots in damp sand in a bin with air holes. Stored cool and dark. Pull what you need. This is the living savings account look that sells the perennial idea. Rhubarb crowns and divisions. Not exactly pantry, but your propagation bank. Wrap divisions in slightly damp burlap for transport or gifting. A trade day episode builds community and grows gardens. Cost math, a 4x8 forever crop bed in plain numbers. Assumptions. Prices vary by region. We'll use conservative grocery equivalents in USD. The bed is layout A from part 9. Parsley, 1 6-inch ribbon, harvest April-November, to £1 divided by month x 7 months equals £7. Grocery, $2 divided by O's. Fresh equals $32 divided by LB. Equivalent herbs are pricey by weight. Realistic swap value at home, $6 divided by LB for bunch pricing equals $42. Chervil, 2 spring and fall waves. Equivalent of to 30 small bunches total. At $2 divided by bunch equals $60. You can't even buy chervil reliably. Scarcity amplifies value. Good King Henry, 1 clump. 2 pounds blanched leaves divided by season plus spring spears equal to 1 pound asparagus. Spinach equivalent $5 divided by LB plus asparagus, equivalent $4 equals to $14. Add bud, mini broccoli, to 0.5 pounds at $3 divided by LB equals $1.50. Total is approximately equal to $15.50 conservative. Value is actually higher for timing. Fennel, 2 bulbs plus fronds plus seed. Grocery bulbs, $3 each. X6 across staggered sowings in same footprint equals $18. Seeds divided by pollen small jars retail, $5, $10, call it $10 home equivalent. Cardoon, 1 plant. Grocery equivalent is rare. Treat as artichoke divided by stem veg. A single plant can yield 5-8 pounds usable ribs. At $3 divided by pound comparable veg equals $15, $24. We'll book $18. Lovage, shared with bed edge or container. Herb bundles, impossible to buy fresh in many markets. Conservatively 10 packs at $2 equals $20. Lovage saltier iklan klotri. Rhubarb, 1 crown. 8. 12 pounds harvest conservative after establishment. At $3 divided by LB equals $24, $36. Book, $30. Skirret, a small strip or shared container. 3-4 pounds, selective. Harvest year 2. At $4 divided by pound root veg equivalent parsnip divided by celery, root, equals $12, $16. Book, $14. Purslane, curated volunteer. 2. 3 pounds tender tops across summer. At farmers market prices to $8 divided by LB equals $16, $24. Book, $18. Total conservative annual value from a single 4 times 8 forever crop bed, year 2 plus. $207, $235 in grocery equivalents, before you count preserved forms premium value, pollen, syrups, chutneys. And the fact that many of these items, chervil, lovage, cardoon, skirret, are effectively unbuyable in standard stores. Add in preserved extras, pollen jar, $10, rhubarb syrup, 2 bottles, $12, chutney, 2 jars, $10, parsley cubes, value $12. And the practical total lands comfortably around $250, $280 per season. That's not counting entertainment, divided by brand value, if you're filming, which is its own revenue stream in a niche. Time math, because time is the real currency. Establishment. Spring. 2. 3 hours to plant. Top, dress, mulch, and water. Filmable in 1 session. Weekly maintenance. 45-60 minutes combined, harvest plus prep plus pantry day tasks. That's it. Irrigation is automated or done during that window. Preservation days. 1 60-90 minute pantry day per month becomes syrups, cubes, and jars. Stack these into a montage episode, and they become content, not chores. Waste math. The stealth win. Perennials cut waste because they wait for you. Skirret sits in sand or soil, not rotting in a crisper. Parsley cubes stop the wilt and bin cycle. Rhubarb cubes give you controlled portions. Purslane volunteers replace store greens that slime in 4 days. Show this in 1 fridge clean-out episode. From 3 slimy bags to 0 because the garden times itself. How to script preservation without losing viewers. 3 act. Micro-episodes. Act 1. Harvest queue. Act 2. Transform quickly. Act 3. Plug into a meal. Example, snip fennel umbles shake, pull a dust over roasted carrots. Why this, not that? Compare dried chervil, flat, versus frozen butter coin fragrant. Taste both on camera. Viewers remember contrasts. Label discipline on, Cam, date, contents and use on lines. Rhubarb syrup 2025-04 spritz, yogurt, pork glaze. It's a tutorial in a single shot. Pantry paycheck segment. Quick cost overlay. This $3 in sugar plus free rhubarb made $12 worth of syrup plus 2 recipe wins. Keep it breezy, not penny pinching. Preservation ladder. Start anywhere, climb when ready. Level 110 minutes. Freeze herb cubes, stash fronds, twist rhubarb sauce. Level 2 minutes. Roast freeze rhubarb, blanch freeze greens, fennel seed harvest. Level 3 minutes. Chutney, syrups, lovage set, skilled parcook plus freeze. Level 4 cellar style. Sand, storing skirret, forcing rhubarb, seed, saving chervil, divided by parsley for a closed loop. Connecting it back to the table. End every preservation piece by using the thing you just made within 24 hours on camera. Rhubarb syrup into a spritz. Pollen onto roasted veg. Parsley cube into soup. Chervil coin melting over omelette. Viewers don't want jars, they want dinners. Show the handoff and you'll never need to convince them again. In part 12, we'll wrap with a field guide you can print or pin. Quick IDs, harvest cues, one best preservation path per crop, and a year-at-a-glance checklist, plus a closing call to action your audience can act on this week, whether they have a yard, a balcony, or just a sunny window and a stubborn love of good food. Here's your pocket field guide, the print and pin companion that keeps the garden, kitchen, and camera in sync. Use it as a script outline, a checklist taped inside a cupboard, or a downloadable one-pager for your audience. It's quick IDs, harvest cues, best preservation paths, and a year at a glance that turns 9 forever crops into a calm, continuous food system. Quick IDs, spot them at a glance. Lovage, look, tall, glossy green, celery-like leaves on thick, hollow stems, airy yellow umbels. Vibe, celery flavor on easy mode. Smells savory when you crush a leaf. Wear, sunny backline, likes even moisture. Cardoon, look, big, silvery, armored leaves with pronounced ribs. Purple thistle, like blooms. Vibe, artichoke's dramatic cousin. Edible stems are the prize. Wear, full sun, well-drained, room to sprawl. Rhubarb, look, giant paddle leaves on red divided by green stalks. Prehistoric spring push. Vibe, tart, early, unstoppable. Leaves are inedible. Wear, morning sun, rich soil, mulched crown. Fennel, bulbing. Look, white swollen base with feathery fronds, golden umbels later. Vibe, crunchy sweet anise, plus seed and pollen. Wear, full sun, free draining, not crowded. Good King Henry. Look, arrow, shaped leaves, stout spring shoots, later tiny bud clusters. Vibe, 3-in-1, asparagus stand-in, spinach, like greens, mini broccoli buds. Wear, sun to part shade, likes mulch. Parsley, flat or curly. Look, familiar bunching habit, flat leaf broad, curly ruffled. Vibe, daily green amplifier, stocks and sources. Wear, sun or part shade, steady moisture. Chervil, look, lacy, fern-like leaves, delicate and bright green. Vibe, parsley's whisper with a hint of anise. Hates heat and transplanting. Wear, cool shade, direct sewn ribbons. Skirret, look, tuft of feathery greens above, underground cluster of white roots. Vibe, perennial sweet root, carrot mates parsnip energy. Wear, moist loam, partial sun, harvest selectively. Purslane, look, low succulent mats with spoon leaves and red-green stems. Vibe, heat-loving lemony crunch, omega-3 powerhouse. Wear, sun-baked gaps and path edges, curatable volunteer. Harvest cues, the moment to act. Lovage, cut outer stems any time. Harvest seeds when umbels brown and rattle. Cardoon, peel and take ribs when thick but still pliable. Blanch stems 2-3 weeks for tenderness. Rhubarb, twist, pull stalks when thick and crisp. Leave at least 1/3 of stalks. Fennel, lift bulbs at tennis, ball size. Snip fronds all season. Take seed heads when brown, pollen when umbels glow yellow. Good King Henry. Spring spears at 6 inches, then outer leaves regularly. Pinch bud clusters pre-bloom. Parsley. Cut stems at the base from the outside in. Keep plants low and leafy to delay bolting. Chervil. Snip tender tops often. Resow when it hints at bolting. Skirret. Year 2 plus. Dig aside and borrow thick roots, or lift, trim, and replant the crown. Purslane. Pinch tips continually for tender growth. Harvest mats before first frost. Best preservation path. 1. Most worth it method each. Lovage salt. Seeds blitzed with flaky salt. Secondary. Dry leaves for stock jars. Cardoon par. Cook ribs, cool, and freeze in batons for weeknight gratins. Rhubarb roast. Freeze in cubes. Bottle a syrup for spritzers and glazes. Fennel seed and pollen dried airtight. Fronds frozen flat. Bulb slices par. Frozen then bagged. Good King Henry Blanche. Press in thin freezer sheets for snap-off use. Parsley pisto cubes. Stems frozen for stock. Chervil finds herbs butter coins. Freezer. Avoid drying. Skirret blanch batons and freeze. Or store roots in damp sand. Cellar style. Purslane dehydrate to crisps or powder for tangy sprinkles. Fresh is best all summer. Kitchen primers. Fast conversions that simplify filming. 1 packed cup parsley leaves is approximately equal to 1 generous pisto cube, tablespoon plus. 1 fennel bulb, tennis ball, equals 2 salads, or 1 sheet pan side for 2. 8 ounces, Good King Henry, blanched, equals spinach for 2-3 servings. 1 rhubarb crown in season equals to 1.5 pound divided by week for 6-8 weeks after establishment. 1 cardoon plant equals 5-8 pounds ribs divided by year with good soil and water. 1 skirret clump, year 2, equals 2. 4 selective digs, 0.5, 1 pound each. Year at a glance, Northern Hemisphere, shift 4-8 weeks by climate. Late winter, force rhubarb under a dark cover. Divide mature lovage divided by rhubarb if needed. Direct, sow chervil in shade ribbons. Top dress beds with compost. Early spring, plant Good King Henry divisions. Set skirret divisions. Sow parsley, pre-soaked seeds. And first fennel when frost risk fades. Harvest forced rhubarb. Film the lift reveal. First Good King Henry spears. Show cut and come discipline. Late spring, cardoon wraps for blanching. Fennel bulbs swelling. Rhubarb in full swing. Start syrup and roasted, cube batches. Chervil peak, coin your butter. Parsley weekly cuts, pisto cubes batch. Summer, purslane takes over hot gaps. Film, from crack to salad. Lift fennel bulbs. Freeze fronds, shake first pollen. Cardoon gratins divided by braises. Peel and freeze extras. Pause rhubarb harvest. Water crowns, mulch. Good King Henry. Bud clusters equals mini broccoli. Fall. Fennel seed harvest, pollen gold bag. Skirret selective digs after first frost. Start sand bin. New chervil sowings thrive. Parsley sweetens. Lovage seed, lovage salt. Freeze finales. King Henry sheets. Pisto top-ups. Winter. Skirret in sand. Parsley under mulch. Plan divisions. Pantry reels. Rhubarb syrup. Fennel seed. Lovage salt. Frozen greens, and 3 ways you used each this month. Layout refresh and seed. Saving recap for your niche audience. Troubleshoot quick list. On-screen fixes. Bitter Good King Henry. Blanch 60 seconds. Squeeze. Finish with fat plus acid. Stringy cardoon. You didn't peel enough. Scrape ribs until glossy. Bend test for snap. Limp parsley. Ice. Water revive 5 minutes. Spin. Use immediately in pisto. Bolting chervil. Cooler shade. Thin mulch. Risotto today. Cracking fennel bulbs. Inconsistent water. Add a deep soak schedule. Woody skirret cores. Older or droughty. Boil then split and flick out core. Companion moves. Low effort wins. Bouquet garni. Parsley stems plus bay plus thyme tied. Drop into every stalk. Green oil. Blitz fennel fronds with neutral oil. Strain. Freeze cubes. Garden gremolata. Parsley plus lemon plus garlic over any roast for instant lift. Lovage pickle brine. Add a pinch of lovage seed to any quick pickle for medieval celery pop. Story beets. You can loop each season. Firsts, First rhubarb twist. First spear of good King Henry. First pollen dust. Tricks: forcing jar lift. Cardoon unwrap. Skirret side, dig reveal. Payoffs: pistu cube into Tuesday soup. Herb coin on eggs. Pollen on roasted carrots. Trade day, dividing crowns, gifting divisions, garden grows gardens. Balcony divided by no yard starter, the yes you can kit. Half barrel, lovage or rhubarb, pick one. 12-inch pots. 2 fennel, staggered. 1 good King Henry. 2 parsley. Broad bowl in shade. Chervil. Sunny tray. Purslane. It will find you. Skirret if you can swing a 14-inch deep pot. This container rig gives you seasoning, greens, bulbs, summer salad crunch, and a perennial root even without ground soil. The closing loop. Why this matters every week. Perennials change your defaults. Fewer emergency grocery runs, fewer wilted bags, more 5-minute finishes, more meals that taste alive. The medieval logic holds plant for reliability, harvest by rhythm, preserve by habit, and let the garden forgive your busy stretches. Your viewers don't need permission. They need a path they can copy. Give them 1 bed, 1 tray, 1 coin of butter, 1 cube of green, 1 sprinkle of pollen, and then repeat. Action steps your audience can do this week. Yard or no yard. Pick 1 anchor plus 2 supporters. Rhubarb or lovage. Parsley plus chervil. Plant or sow now. Make 1 green. Parsley pistu or fines herbs butter coins. Use it within 24 hours. Film 1 tray truths. Show 3 items and 1 way each becomes dinner. Start 1 preservation habit. Freeze herb cubes or roast freeze rhubarb. Label with a use online. Share 1 trade. Offer a lovage division or parsley seed packet to a neighbour. Ask for a pot or a sunny corner in return. That's the arc. 9 forgotten forever useful plants. 1 resilient, low input system. A kitchen cadence that feels human. And a show that earns trust by repeating what works. Keep the cadence, keep the camera honest, and let the garden's plot carry yours.